Pretty good. Oh my god, yeah. So much better. Okay, this guy is huge. You gotta save the guy with the giant there.
Are we strong enough? No, we're gonna need another tower. Gotta spend another 10 points for that tower.
All right, come on, team, do it. Let's build another archer tower tonight. There we go. Now they're getting triple penetrated.
Doing good, guys. Okay, now I'm gonna take this point to build an archer tower on the outside.
More about the base. Nice. Okay, that's gonna help us a little bit. There's still a bunch of red enemies showing up. We need to collect gold.
Interesting. Plus they have a big meter, so I'm thinking I'll have to build barracks number 2 pretty soon. Let's take some shots and see how much damage we can do. What am I doing? Let's get these barracks built ASAP.
Whoa, did you see that?
It's no secret that mobile game ads are notorious for being disingenuous when it comes to gameplay. It's a well-established norm that the gameplay featured in these ads is often different, wildly so sometimes, from the gameplay found in the actual game itself. Ads will showcase fast, flashy excitement, and while it may occur in the game, it by no means makes up the core of the experience. Instead, most mobile games settle on the tried and true approach: time-based placement and resource management. The focus of most of the mobile games that you see heavily pushed in ads are designed with one goal in mind: to rend every last bit of disposable income from the player as possible. While it's true that these games can be played without spending obscene amounts of real money, they are designed to make doing so almost impossible. From throwing up huge wait times that can be skipped with purchases, to payments for immunities or recoveries, to, of course, loot boxes, every aspect of mobile games is meant to make the player spend money in the purely artificial guise of convenience. I remember my first game that introduced me to this approach, and would you be surprised that it wasn't even a mobile game? I don't know how I came across Good Game Empire, but I jumped in and played it for a bit if I recall correctly. It had a city builder light feel to it, and I probably would have never liked it had I played something like Stronghold. But alas, I put in, I'd say, a good 10 or 20 hours or so. That's because it didn't take long for the monetization walls to hit. I quickly realized that as I was upgrading my castle's buildings and walls, the times they took to build got exponentially longer. 10 and 30 minute build times turned into hours, tens of hours, and finally upwards of a day or two. Now the wait wasn't the problem for me. I was patient and more than happy to trigger a build before school and come back to a built or almost built structure. Instead, it was the very unbalanced PvP and the fact that having your castle attacked would reset those build times that drove me away. But I digress. This isn't a video about the malicious predatory practices found in mobile games, but rather how one in particular caught my eye, not due to its ingenuitive gameplay, but rather the opposite. As much as they are known for misrepresenting gameplay, mobile game ads are also known for, well, ripping off other IPs in their ads as well. The most prominent that I remember used very similar sprites and graphics from the likes of Age of Empires and Rise of Nations. But for whatever reason, Kingshot has been pushed hard on a number of apps that I use, as well as on YouTube. And I'm not sure if it's a trend in the overall mobile game commentary sphere, but the streamer ads just look and feel so low quality and effort. Like one that feels and looks like the guy is just reading from a script for the first time, and probably is.
Please build fast. This situation is stressful.
I've done some quick looking up of how Kingshot actually plays, and surprise surprise, the gameplay shown in the ads makes up a minuscule portion of the gameplay found in-game proper. Instead, it's that same resource management city builder light rife with opportunities to pay for convenience. But what about those ads? The gameplay portrayed there shows a lone king desperately trying to fend off hordes of enemies, using dropped coins to build towers and bolster defenses. In the ads, the towers do a lion's share of the work, and the prices don't often line up with the cost. Meanwhile, the enemies that assail the player are massive, both in number and scale, only outdone by the amount of coins that the enemies drop when defeated, which flood the screen, which, of course, is another mobile game tactic, the feeling of massive, unending success and payoff, which, in reality, is completely meaningless. At the end of the battle, the king upgrades his castle. Wooden towers and walls are morphed into stone, houses pop up, and villagers populate them. Wait, villagers? This is where the ads most definitely broke off from what I will loosely call the source material. The ads for Kingshot also mention how a large portion of the game is focused on managing your subjects and resources. This is where I drew the line, as the latter two details are found nowhere in the game that Kingshot attempts to portray itself as. And in fact, the Pretender King doesn't have much of a shot at being as good of a game as the original. Now it should be pretty obvious that this video isn't meant to win over the folks who play Kingshot, or mobile game players in general. Instead, this video is for those gamers that may have seen the gameplay that the Kingshot ads mimicked and thought looked interesting, only to be duped. But most importantly, this video is for the fans of Thronefall, like myself, who have seen these ads and immediately smelled a rat. Thronefall is a great game with engaging, exciting, and fun gameplay, and it deserves more than to be used as just a bait and switch. At its core, Thronefall is a tower defense game. However, it approaches the formula with a few quirks. At the beginning of each level, our titular monarch stands alone, and whose first task is to establish a stronghold. Once established, locations are provided to place other structures, such as houses, farms, or mines, and of course, defensive towers. Here already Thronefall posits you with a choice. With the limited remaining funds, how do you wish to gear your gameplay? For greater economic efficiency or for stout defense? Houses provide income at the end of every wave. Farms do the same thing at an increased rate, but are fragile and vulnerable. And finally, towers provide the key to survival, defense. Whatever you choose, once you are prepared, it is time to go forth into the night. The first few nights of each level are the easiest, and in many cases can be won with just your monarch and their trusty iconic bow. That is, of course, if you choose the bow and arrow over the 8 other weapons that you unlock. Each weapon comes with a primary, passive ability, as well as a secondary, active one that operates on a cooldown. For example, the iconic bow and arrow's passive skill is, obviously, to continuously shoot arrows at nearby enemies, while its secondary is the ability to strike a nearby target with a short dagger. Other weapons include a more CQC appropriate sword and shield, as well as more shocking weapons. One discrepancy one might notice off the bat between Thronefall and Kingshot is that, in Thronefall, the enemies don't exactly follow a direct, rigid route. Instead, they will head for the stronghold, but then target anything in their immediate vicinity, including the monarch. This is a useful tactic in later waves, as the player can use the monarch to lure enemies away from the stronghold towards other defenses. Once you've staved off the knight's attackers and collected the noticeably more modest plunder, it's time to ready yourselves for the next night, which will bring enemies in greater numbers and variety. You can either build more structures, or you can upgrade existing ones. The upgrade mechanic is very nifty, in that each time you upgrade a building, it allows you to customize and choose a variety of buffs for that structure. And as you upgrade your stronghold, it allows for more structures further afield, expanding your defenses. Thronefall also does a great job of pacing and introducing new ways of approaching the core gameplay. As an avid member of the RTS Turtle Club, I felt right at home with Thronefall's first level, Nordfels, whose layout was close-knit and resulted in a well-established, concise fortress. The following desert map, on the other hand, did not spark joy. The desert map was spread out, with numerous avenues of approach and fewer means of centralizing defenses. After attempting my normal turtle approach of solely walls and towers, I submitted to the fact that this map would have to be one with fluid, mobile troops. And while each map brings a new dynamic or consideration, they still all feel and operate the same way, so each level feels approachable. Just changing one aspect here and there is enough to keep each map fresh as well, such as the desert map introducing mines, and the lake map introducing fishing docks, and, well, we'll get back to what else is introduced. But finally, the thing that makes Thronefall not just enjoyable, but also replayable, is the perks and mutators mechanic. At the beginning of each playthrough, you choose not only which weapon you wish to take into battle, but also a slew of perks, which obviously provide buffs for the player, but also mutators, which make the game more difficult by either debuffing player aspects or buffing enemy ones, with the payoff being added bonus to the endgame score. As you level up, you unlock weapons, perks, and mutators, and while you can only take in a limited amount of perks to a map, you can activate as many mutators as you like. Finally, each map has a set of quests as well, requiring specific high scores, using specific weapons, or having certain mutators active, or both. The quests provide players with a bit more challenge, while the perks and mutators in general allow for in-game difficulty to be highly customizable, and affect target aspects, rather than just general easy, medium, and hard difficulty settings. What you won't find is villagers in need of management, nor will you be focusing on a single kingdom. Each map is the start of a new realm, and a new game, meaning the player can test multiple approaches and multiple challenges, although there is an endless mode. But despite its simple appearance and approach, Thronefall manages to pull off what imitators can't, a fun game, and one that is endearing in its simplicity. The throne of the true king is resplendent, not in outward appearances, but rather in its character. Every now and then, there's a game trailer that wins me over almost solely with its soundtrack. For example, the Farthest Frontier announcement trailer music did it for me, and Thronefall's opening number, A New Reign, is the exact same story. Also, it uses hurdy-gurdy sounds. It's a Newtonian law of physics. Hurdy-gurdy equals a good soundtrack. Thronefall's OST mirrors the game itself, extremely effective despite being apparently simple. The main theme, A New Reign, sets the tone, the motifs, the overall vibe. What sounds like a lute, violin, bagpipes, drums, and of course, a subtle hurdy-gurdy, the OST comes off medieval meets modern, but not too in-your-face about it. Today We Fight adds a few instruments and leans more medieval than modern, but has this frantic pacing and flow that fits perfectly with the waves of enemies that assault the castle while it plays. All or Nothing just intensifies the whole thing, horns signaling the final night, with a chorus in the background letting you know that things are really real. At the same time, it's not too intense either. You can tell that things are more intense, but not to the point of completely overwhelming you. The final night isn't to be feared. There also appears to be variations on certain tracks as well, depending on region. And while I haven't gotten to all of them, I know that there are a few other tracks. I can also tell there are slightly different variations for certain events. Almost there, just stay with me. But as I said, the OST suits the overall vibe for Thronefall perfectly. And that's the best way I can talk about Thronefall's simple yet effective approach. It just has a good vibe. Despite the fact that all the models and graphics don't have much going on, it all just works. I think it's the color palette and, in particular, the lighting that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Because despite not a lot going on graphically, the final presentation still manages to look really good. The gameplay operates the same way, taking all those simple mechanics, throwing them together in an equally minimalist world, and wave after wave of enemies shows that the whole is most certainly more than the sum of its parts. And that is where I think I have the greatest qualm when it comes to the mobile games attempting to grift off of what is Thronefall's masterpiece. Thronefall comes with something that mobile games don't, and by design can't, have. Something that separates games made from passion from those made solely for the purpose of extracting money. Games like Thronefall hold genuine senses of challenge and achievement, and, as I found out somewhat by accident, they can also feel what I can only describe as epic. So, if I recall correctly, I purchased Thronefall rather early, and at the time it only had a few levels. I had only played the first 2 maps after the tutorial, Nordfels and Durstein, but I had aced Nordfels, completing all the challenges, and was doing the same for Durstein when, as so often happens, life or something got in the way. I stopped playing, even after Thronefall's full release, including new perks and the release of the rest of the maps. It was only when making my last video, and thinking of games that I would like footage for, did I return to Thronefall. I try to make it a habit to at least choose games that I haven't played in a while, or better, new ones, for gameplay I need when making videos. This allows me to actually go back and play the games that I loved, or try new ones. Thronefall was a bit of both. I knew I loved the gameplay cycle, but just hadn't jumped back in, so here was a good opportunity. It's such a shame that I stopped at Durstein earlier, because when grabbing footage for the Message to Me video, I decided to give the next map, Frostsea, a go. And while I thought I knew Thronefall's routine, I was pleasantly and epically surprised by what Frostsea had to offer. Right off the bat, the introduction of docks as a new form of income was cool, and similar to how Durstein introduced mines. But other than that, everything else seemed part and parcel of the normal Thronefall approach, except for the lake. Right from the get-go, I knew that lake was suspicious. Oh, and spoilers, I guess. But I wasn't expecting much. The last days of every map always promise a challenge, but for the most part, it was just a huge final assault on my built-up defenses. And so, when the final night came to Frostsea on my first playthrough, my initial thought at seeing this was...
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the f*** is that?
Okay, I knew that lake was sus. I stood beside my defenses and awaited this mystery enemy. But what could it be? Will a huge army just appear from the lake? Will it be an enemy fortress? Will it... And that's it. That's the thing shallow, soulless mobile games designed purely to continuously extract money are missing. That feeling of epicness, of the buildup of suspense and the achievement when you defy the game master's odds. My jaw hit the floor when the monster spawned, and looking back, the feeling I had of anticipation and surprise was something I hadn't felt from a game in a while. It was a feeling of facing off against bosses in games I've played when I was younger, such as The Legend of Zelda or Sly Cooper, or more recent games like Skyrim. It's a feeling you get a bit less in more strategy-style games, which Thronefall most certainly is, so the feeling was even more surprising. But when it was all said and done, when the beast was finally defeated, there was a genuine sense of satisfaction, of victory, something I just didn't expect Thronefall to provide. And that is the true majesty of Thronefall. Despite its simple looks and approach, Thronefall manages to be exciting, thrilling, challenging, and most importantly, fulfilling, to an extent that Kingshot just can't be, in which no way Kingshot can compare to the splendor of the throne that shall not fall. What Thronefall has managed to do is take a handful of neat mechanics and compile them into a fun, deceptively thrilling, simple, yet potentially challenging experience. Not only that, it allows for players to scale their experience, presenting an initial challenge, but then allowing for a wide range of customization that affect difficulty. Not only that, but the same means of customization allows for replayability and experimentation, meaning even late in the game, players can still try new experiences. Finally, Thronefall's vibe is quaint and approachable, yet can still feel, for a lack of a better word, epic. So if you've seen the King Shot ads, and are looking for a game experience that not only fulfills those empty promises and more, then Thronefall awaits, its lands ready to be settled, its enemies to be vanquished, and the throne to be defended. Long live the one true king. Long live Thronefall.